Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Live Your Spa Life show. Spa life is a lifestyle that accepts that accomplishment and harmony coexist. The spa in spa life, the SPA, is for seek power always. That power within you to do your greater work in the world. I am so excited to have my next guest on the show, who is Marcus Cauchi. He is the go-to man in the UK who creates environments for executives, managers, producers to have a seamless, frictionless buying experience through the lifetime of them as a customer. He does all the nuances, the sales, the seamless things that people need to have in the background. He is our go-to man. And Marcus, we are so excited to have you today on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just talk a little bit here about how do you create a safe, risk-free environment for a company? I know that you've talked about that. There's so many nuances that happen in a company. How do you have them have that safety feeling that allows them to grow?
It's a fabulous question. Well, the first thing is that there needs to be trust, and trust is built on credibility, reliability, intimacy, and low self-orientation. The problem that I see is that the three pillars of buyer safety, seller safety, and partner safety are largely ignored because the owner, the founder, the leadership is on an unholy race to try and grow their business, to build their own personal wealth, and so on. And customers don't really like that. The reality is that customers want to know that they can trust you. Reliability and credibility are the given. You show up, and if you're a coach, if you're a business provider of any sort, the expectation is that you have a certain level of competence, and you can do that consistently, and you're going to do it reliably. The trick is to be able to, not the trick, the skill is to be able to enable people to let you in. And that level of intimacy is difficult to earn, and it's very easy to lose. And part of the problem here is that many people in sales and in leadership have a very high self-orientation, and no one wants to turn up to a meeting where the other person sees you as a $25,000 mark. And the problem with that is that if you see the other person as someone you can exploit, you can use to your advantage, that's not really service. And the origin of the word sales comes from an old German and Norse word, which means to serve. And it starts with service. And I think very few people have really got to grips with that, because they think you turn up to sell, when actually that's quite the opposite of what buyers want. They want to know that you have their best interests at heart, that you're offering them protection, that you're a safe pair of hands. And as a leader, as a manager, you serve your people. They don't serve you. And this is where I think there's a disconnect.
You know, I love this. This made me think of like what's happening in the greater world and how is there a reflection in this in business, because there's this inherent lack of trust that's happening right now because people are being spoon-fed all kinds of things about what you need to do and, you know, the whole health conversation. And, you know, there's been so many steps and missteps in that there has been, I believe, a greater lack of trust just overall in the world. And how do you think that is rippling into the trust of businesses with their clients?
Well, the reality is anyone who wants power should not have it. And that's the first rule. Never give power to people who want it. And anyone who wants to go into public service probably has to square in their own minds the pillorying that they're going to get, and the horror that their families are going to have to endure. So I think there is a dearth of leadership at the moment, and I bemoan that. Now, in terms of establishing the right kind of environment, the first thing you need to do is show up with the express intent of establishing, can I help? If I can, am I the right person to help? Are we the right organization to help? I think the litmus test is, would you recommend to a prospective customer that they go with your closest, fiercest competitor because they can do a better job than you can? That's a really good litmus test. And when it comes to establishing the qualities of a deal, the question I always like to ask is, would you do that deal 100 times in a row, or would you only ever do it once? Because if you would do it 100 times in a row, and both sides would do it 100 times in a row, that means you've got a good deal. But if you'd only do it once, or they'd only do it once, then that is very indicative that maybe you need to go back and reassess your value system.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it also looks like when we start looking at, okay, what are you actually doing within your company and who is it that you're focusing on? And this comes into the whole idea of niching your business and being able to look at that. You've served over 500 market segments, right? That's a lot of different things. How is it that, people can do their work with a lot of different things, but in what ways do they then niche that down to the market that they serve?
Well, I think it's really important to be clear about who your ideal customer is. Now, most people will come up with some wishy-washy persona. Our ideal customer is Dave. He's in a relationship with Sarah. They're 35. They've got 2 kids and a couple of Labradors, and that's fine for Dave, but it's not really fine for anyone else. And there is technology out there that enables you to really create pinpoint accurate ideal customer profiles. You need to really understand the value that you bring. What are the problems that you're able to solve for your customers, and why would they care? Because people don't actually ever buy your product or your service outright. They rent it for as long as it's delivering the intended outcome that they paid for. And part of the problem here is that most organizations and most vendor organizations will spend their time peddling product or their service. Honestly, no one cares. They don't care about you, your company, your product, your service. And the best you can hope for, if the number 73 bus turns you into raspberry jam on the street, is they're going to say, Diane's going to make me late going home. So it's really important that you pay attention to who your customer is and who your customer is not. Establish what your great customers look like, because if you can identify what a great customer looks like, then you can go and look for those sorts of people or organizations again. And again, technology is now out there that can enable you to map the shape of a population, so you can identify what an occasional customer, a loyal customer, and a super loyal customer looks like. And in doing that, if you find more super loyal customers, they spend 30 times more than an occasional customer. Now, this then moves into another area, which is looking at how you can bring consistent, sustained value to a particular niche or ideal customer. And how can you continue bringing value? And I think part of the problem is this obsession with new business and selling into your cold market. The cold market costs you 8 to 10 times more than selling to your existing customers. It takes you 2 to 4 times longer at least. And on average, you have to put about 30 times the effort in to secure a piece of business from your cold market to your existing customer base. So what I would do is I would spend time talking to your great customers, the ones that you love working with and love working with you, and find out why they buy from you and why they keep buying from you, and find out what they need next. And always stay that one step ahead or several steps ahead, because I believe that you should be co-developing your solutions with your best customers, not the ones who shout the loudest, not the ones who are most demanding, but the ones who are the best customers. They're profitable, they're great to do business with, they're easy to do business with, and they're a joy to do business with. And find something that you are really, really good at and double down on it. Then one of my pals is the lead analyst for Forrester, and he's seeing that the companies that hyper niche, so it's no longer good enough to be the managed service provider in health. Now you need to be the managed service provider for walk-in clinics of up to 50 doctors in Southeast Chicago. That level of niching is really driving growth. And those organizations experience hypergrowth, which means more than 40% year-on-year compound growth. Many of these companies are growing by thousands of percent per annum, not tens or hundreds, but thousands of percent. And so it requires you to take a step back and reflect and understand who your customer is and who they are not, and focus on the ones who you are best suited to serve excellently.
Hmm. So, Marcus, how is it that people can distinguish between, the companies that are just kind of trickling their business forward and those that are having exponential growth?
Their bank balance and their revenues will be a great starting point. But again, if you look at, certainly within technology, it's fairly clear the type of organizations that are growing extremely fast. But you see this in lots of industries where they have a steady stream of inbound inquiries, where there is a very high degree of repeat business, where they cross-sell, and where they operate, they see an account as an ecosystem, as a marketplace, as opposed to being simply a transaction. So one of the things I would do is get out of that transactional mentality, which is really driven by scarcity more often than not, and think about how we can be of value to our customers in the medium to long term. When I'm working with sales teams, I want my salespeople prospecting for a customer who will be a customer in 5, 10, 15 years' time. I don't care whether they hit their quota this month or this quarter. What I really care about is, are you attracting those customers who will still be with us for decades to come, and we can be selling to their children and their grandchildren? Because we owe our customers a duty of care. We look after them when times are tough, and they'll look after us when times are tough for us. And you've seen this in the pandemic. The organizations that treated their customers as transactions, they've really suffered, and their people have left. And the best organizations ended up, I remember when the pandemic first hit, I started offering free services to existing customers and customers who've been customers 3, 4, 5 years back, because I know they needed help. And the net result of that was they all made it through the pandemic, the first round. And as a result of that, they were stronger. And I think part of the challenge here is we've got to think about that whole piece about service. Service is about giving to others first, and in return, getting something back. And your job, Ralph Waldo Emerson, his law of compensation is to get more, give more. The more you give, the more likely you are to get back. And yes, some people will take advantage. I get that. And for years, for 2 decades, I've been telling people, no free consulting. I was wrong. I don't think you can give enough away, because certainly in terms of your intellectual property and your ideas, you can give those away. What copycats don't have is the thinking that went behind it. They don't have the scar tissue that went behind it. So they don't, whatever they do is a pale imitation. And your job is to help your customers succeed. And you help lots and lots of other people become wildly successful.
Right. Well, and I love you talk about that kind of scar tissue that it took to get there, and that also, when you have long-term clients, you've grown with them, you've seen what their pitfalls were, what's going on intimately with the people on their team, and I was just thinking back that it's not just a transaction. If you're dealing with someone, you're dealing with the whole person. They're going to have things in their personal life. They're going to have things, employee type things are going on. And if you don't look at that big picture and you're not a presence to helping them move forward on a totality versus a small scope, I think you're losing the mark on that. So looking at it in how is it that you can help your existing clients. I remember someone saying at some time that if you had 100 clients, you could have business for life. Like, you didn't need to have thousands of them, right? It's like if you had a core group of people that you continued to serve and you were building upon that, that's more, the relationship approach to serving them. And then it also comes down to what is the process that you're doing? And I know you had said at one point that any approach done well works. And I'd love for you to elaborate on that, because sometimes people think in terms of like, well, I have to do it the right way, or this certain thing, or these certain parameters that need to have happen. Talk a little bit about, having any approach and making that work.
In my world around sales, there are dozens and dozens of very fine methodologies, and they all work. If you show up with the wrong intent, none of them work well. So there's one particular methodology, and they did some research, and they researched the top and middle performers before they wrote their book. And they said 50% of top performers have this type of approach to selling. Now, a couple of years later, someone did a study of top, middle, and bottom performers. And what they found was 50% of the top performers and 50% of the bottom performers adopted exactly the same methodology and approach. But the difference was how they showed up. Because if you turn up and you challenge people and you're a bit of an oaf and you're brutal and you're self-aggrandizing, no one's going to buy from you. If, on the other hand, you turn up with curiosity, a genuine intent to serve and to help, and you are using that approach in order to help the other person be the hero in their own story, you're going to be wildly successful. And I see this time and time again, where people fixate on techniques and tactics. There's one organization that I'm helping at the moment, and they're on their 5th methodology in 6 years. And
Wow.
nothing changes. The performance stays exactly the same. Why? Because they're consistently doing the thing wrong, because they're showing up poorly. Your job is to understand the other human being, what's going on in their world. And you can't separate Diane, the human being, from Diane, the entrepreneur, the podcaster. And the challenge here is that you need to show up with the express intent of helping those people achieve their desired outcome. No one comes to you because they want to be worse off. They're all looking for a better future.
Right.
And the problem there is that unless you take the time to really understand it, and one of my mentors is a fabulous man, Dr. Mark Goulston, and he wrote the one book that every human being, if you're part of the species, you have to read it. It's called Just Listen. And he makes the point, all human beings want to be heard, to feel felt, and to be understood. If you don't feel what the other person feels in your engagement with them, then chances are there's going to be a disconnect and it will feel transactional. And this requires compassion. It requires empathy. It requires patience. It requires understanding. And it requires a low self-orientation. If you are trying to make a sale as opposed to serve the other person to get their needs met, then odds are they're going to smell it on you. And then it just becomes a race to the bottom on price, because that's how they're being treated by everybody else.
Right, right. I love this distinction, because there's kind of like this misperception out there that, oh, here's the new shiny process that people should do, and you just plug it in and, it just works magic, and then poofs out clients and profits. And to really look at that, the process is the process, but who you're showing up as that, and how you're showing up and standing for the people that you are uniquely here to serve, is a distinction that is what separates people, right? Because how you show up as that for the people, like you said, you could have 5 different people show up to do the process, but the more successful ones are going to be how they are showing up within that process with the people that they are.
Well, when you turn up as a prospective supplier or vendor, they're making some judgments. Are you any good? Do you have a reputation that suggests that you're capable of solving my problem? Can your products or services solve my problem? But what they're really looking for is, can I trust you? Do you have my back? Do you have the intent to help me achieve my objectives, my goals, my outcomes? Or are you just turning up, trying to put your hand in my pocket, take a swipe of my card, and I'll never see you again? And certainly historically in sales, there's been this real problem where salespeople do this drive-by shooting when it comes to renewals. Every 3 years, 2.5 years in, you're up for renewal, and I haven't seen you for 2.5 years. And now I'm turning up trying to get you to sign another contract for another 3 years. That stinks. And it must leave an awful taste in the mouth of any prospective buyer. And you're just thinking, well, why would I buy from you? Why would I trust you? And trust is absolutely at the heart of all of this. And loyalty stems from trust. If you don't understand that, then get out of your business and become a civil servant, do something else.
Right, definitely. Well, one of the things, Marcus, you specialize in is turning companies around, right? And how is it that a company would know like that they are actually turnaroundable, like it actually will work, or at what point do they let go?
In all honesty, as long as you have a fit within the market, most organizations can be turned around. However, it depends largely on the culture that the leadership and the management have created. If you treat your people as if they are a commodity to be burnt out, and there's a revolving door, that really smacks of poor management and poor leadership. If you have to go out and replace your customers a lot, that's indicative that you have a problem. A churn rate of above 5% would, to me, ring an alarm bell. You need some churn, and not every customer, some customers will grow and evolve and they're no longer appropriate. But the reality is that if you understand that you are there to help your customers, then listen to your customers and find out what it is that they need. Are you still fit for purpose? One of the things that I think should be a sackable offense in most cases is, oh, that's the way we've always done it. So my pal, Zach Selch, is one of the best partner developers and managers on the planet. For the last 35 years, good Jewish boy from Chicago. He's been taking money from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the last 30 years. And the only way out of his network is in a wooden box. Now, what's really interesting is even his competitors give him business because they know that he's the right person to help. Now, if you think that you're in deep, deep trouble, well, first of all, at the moment, are you in debt? If you are in debt, my belief is that interest rates are going to spike dramatically over the next few months and over the next year. So if you're in debt, get out of debt as quickly as humanly possible, because servicing debt at 17, 20% interest rates is going to be problematic. Now, I'm not an economist, so don't necessarily take my word for it. But a couple of weeks ago, my savings account had a 35% increase on interest rates, which is the first rise in interest rates in 10 years. Secondly, is your middle management layer fit for purpose? In the UK, there are over 2.4 million accidental managers. And these were people who were tapped on the shoulder when their idiot boss got fired and told, Diane, you're now a manager. And you need to have a runway for your managers to learn that apprenticeship. So a good management layer that spends time coaching, developing, training in the field, speaking to customers is really key. So that's one thing that you can do to turn things around. Next thing, if it's too late, chances are you've got hemorrhaging in your key staff, and it's your best people that leave. The bad ones hang on with that cold dead hand, like Rod Hudson said. So again, if you lose one of your top talent, there's a 50% probability you're going to lose another one within 6 months. Now, there is something called Price's Law, which every business owner should be aware of. Price's Law states 50% of your production will come from the square root of the number of people in your organization. So if you have 10 salespeople, 3 will produce 50%, 7 will produce the other. If you have 100 distributors, 10 will produce 50%, 90 will produce the other 50%. If you have 10,000 partners, 100 will produce 50%, 9,900 will produce the other 50%. So again, look at the top performers within your organization and see if you can replicate them. Make sure that you're looking after your top performers and find a way of having them mentor the next generation. Another problem you'll see is blind spots. Blind spots are very prevalent in many organizations, and by very definition, you're not going to spot them because they're blind spots. Make sure that you're not doubling down on stupid. One of the ways that you're doubling down on stupid is trying to grow instead of scale. So growth means in order to double your revenue, you have to double your headcount, double your spam rate, double your dials, double your demos, double your proposals. The problem with that is it's very expensive, because to take on $50,000 of new business, you might have to hire someone who costs you $50,000. There's no upside to that. Scaling means that you grow without additional work for the founder, the owner, or your people at no additional, minimal additional cost, and you get to keep some profit. So the next thing is, are you fixated on revenue, not profit? Are you focused on trying to keep the lights on by managing cash flow without making profit? So look at your accounts and see the ones that are losing you money, that are frankly a pain in the neck to deal with. And they're always the ones coming up with changes to your product that only they want. Get out of that habit. Do not make the mistake of listening necessarily to the loudest voices. Listen to the ones that are closest in terms of fit to your ideal customer profile, and double down on helping those people and go out and find more of them. Work through partnerships and alliances. It costs you to get one first meeting at the moment by cold calling takes roughly 33 attempts.
Wow.
Just to get one conversation going, and 14 conversations to get one first meeting. And on average, 7 out of 8 first meetings never result in a second. That means you've spent $3,500, unless you're calling a senior exec in IT, in which case it's 1 in 46 dial attempts. So it's $3,500 to $5,500 dial attempts to get to a second meeting. So improve your conversion rate at first to second by being timely, relevant, and valuable. Because if your second meeting ratio is low, that's indicative that you're showing up and delivering zero value. The next thing to look for is to make sure that when you do show up, you're clearly defining a next step that both sides have agreed to, because 80% of the time that sellers spend is actually chasing people they should have closed or disqualified on the last call.
Right.
And really develop your salespeople. Don't think that they're not performing and it's their fault. If they're not performing, you hired them, you onboarded them, and you failed to train and develop them, and they're not performing on your watch. So you've got to hire the right ones. But there's a whole raft of stuff there to unpack, if you like.
Right. Yes. Oh, Marcus, this is so valuable for people to really look at some of the insights. And we've all heard like the 80-20 rule, and to really look at, who are the small group of people that are really having the biggest impact, and to be able to make those distinctions are really helpful in being able to look at your business and actually any aspect of your life, like, to really be able to identify and have the observation of what's working and what's not working. You can really make some good, clear decisions. So I have to laugh because I look at your background of your old men that you have here. One of the questions I love just for fun to ask my clients is, or at my guests, I should say, is what is your favorite room in your home and why? Because, how we react in our bedroom versus our kitchen or our office is very different. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about what is your favorite room in your home?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know. First of all, my conservatory, then my bedroom, I think. The conservatory's been my office since the 8th of March, 2019. And I've spent 12 to 14 hours in here working. And what I really like about it is it's light. When I had an office, I never saw daylight because I'd show up early and I'd leave late. It's not because I'm anything other. I'm an obsessive, addictive workaholic who loves what I do, and I get paid to play. So I'd say my conservatory, then my bedroom, because then I can just crash out and watch Netflix and binge.
I love it. I love it so much. You and I could talk for hours, and we have before. And I know that our listeners are going to want to stay in contact with you. What's the best way to do that?
If you check me out on LinkedIn, there are only 2 Marcus Cauchis. That's Cauchi. You can find me as _Inquisitor on Twitter. My podcast is the Inquisitor Podcast. If you just type my name in to Apple or Spotify, you can find me there. And LinkedIn, I'm prolific on LinkedIn. So if you want to direct message me on there, that would be perfect.
Wonderful. And, our theme for this year are people who are being a force for good. So I'd love for you to share, how is it that you're being a force for good in the world?
Well, interestingly enough, about 8 months ago, I and a few of my co-conspirators set up a global community called Sales, a Force for Good, precisely because we are frustrated and angry that sales has been taken down a very bad alley. And the customers become a forgotten afterthought at the end of a long chain of abuse. And we want to create the conditions for the next generation of salespeople. So we're tackling the hardest, gnarliest, most difficult problems to do with sales, sales management, recruitment, leadership, compensation. And we're making these resources free forever for anyone in the community, because we believe that sales is a force for good. It's going to be the engine that drives the turnaround post-pandemic. And I fundamentally believe that we have a job, a duty to serve. And my career in sales has been incredibly generous to me, in spite of everything that I've done to be stupid and self-sabotage along the way. And I think it's time that I gave back.
I love it. Love it. Thank you so much for that, and for sharing all of your wisdom and your service to the greater community. I so appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And to our listeners out there, if something you heard really caught your attention, we'd love for you to put in the comments any questions, comments that you have, and tag both myself and Marcus. We're happy to answer any questions that you have, and to share this, get this out to someone who you think needs to look at sales from a different perspective, how they are focusing on their business, their life. There are definitely different ways and approaches to do that. And so I'd love for you to share this so that people can do that. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now. Bye-bye.